Hey, Claire.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. You feeling okay?
No, I feel terrible,
Everybody's
but it's
sick.
okay. I realized today that two of the worst things that could happen while teaching happened today.
Too.
And
Okay.
one was that it was a kid's birthday. It's a terrible
This is
thing
a
to
bad
happen.
thing.
In kindergarten and first grade, it's one of the worst things that can happen because once the kid says it's their birthday, then they say how old they are. What happens when a kid says how old they are is then every single other kid in the class has to say how old they are, and it never ends. They're like, I'm 8. No, I'm 8. Oh, I'll be 8 on my birthday. And I mean, there goes the class. And then somebody had a wiggly tooth,
Oh,
and
not the
it's
tooth.
just downhill from there. So I also have strep throat, but I would say that was probably number 3 on the worst
Really?
things that happened today. So yeah.
Okay, well, today my daughter was sick, and so she was home with me all day. And so I was trying to get work done, and she was over here right next to me. And it's just like every other word she couldn't read, right? Anything I like, it was just focus 5 minutes. I'm like, how do teachers do this with like 20 of you? So yeah, she's in first grade, so I got
Mhm.
one piece of what you experienced today.
Yeah, it's
But
for real.
yeah. All right. Well, today I'm so excited. On the STEM space, we have some special guests, and it's a little bit different. So I've had guests come on. We've talked to different people, different organizations, and they've come on the STEM space to share their company and what they do. But today's a little different because these are two guys that we actually were introduced to a few years ago. And I want to share the email that they sent. So we got this email, Claire, in 2022 from a guy named Amon. And he said, "Hi, my name is Amon. I run a startup called Qweebi, and our mission is to accelerate the adoption of hands on STEM in schools around the world." I was like, interesting. Let me keep reading. And then our thesis is the number one problem that stops a school or a STEM teacher from offering rich hands on STEM experiences to their students is buying and organizing supplies. And I was intrigued, so I kept reading. "We're solving this problem by building a 3D app that lets teachers run any hands-on STEM project found on the internet in Qweebi's sandbox environment. The sandbox world behaves just like the real world and enables students to quickly build and test the ideas that they have in their minds into a working prototype on Qweebi." And then he gave some examples. But the reason I actually responded, Claire, I remember texting you afterwards, and I was like, they know who we are. He said, "We're big Vivify fans, and we started our journey into STEM, and Vivify was our go-to resource." Do you remember when we got this email?
I do, Natasha, and I'm actually really embarrassed because they can hear us right now, and I'm about to say something that I haven't talked about before.
Oh,
So we get a lot of these kind of emails, don't we? I mean, a lot
we get a lot
about
daily.
people saying we have this product, we have this doodad, we have this robot thing that's really special. And I would say that Natasha, in the relationship that we have, I'm the cynic. And we get
That's
an
true.
email, and I'm like, "Oh, sure you do. Yeah, you know STEM. Uh-huh. Yeah, I bet. Oh, you know us. You know Vivify because you just shouted out a title of one of our blog posts. Doubt it. I bet you don't even know my name." And they'll misspell our names
All the
sometimes.
time.
So I
Yep.
must have been in a really bad mood this particular day when this email came through because I looked at it and took one look and was like, mm-hmm, spam. Just another one of these
Delete.
spams. And then and then thankfully you read it, Natasha, and you're like, no, no, no. Like read it again. This is for real. And I did read it again, like, oh, you're right. Actually this does sound really legitimate and we should talk to them.
And so let's bring them on. So we have Aman and his co-founder Vivek, co-founders of Qweebi, and I know there's a third founder. Welcome to the STEM Space podcast.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having us over. Like I said on the email, we are big fans, and then yeah, it feels like a journey to be on the show. So thank you so much for having us over.
Yeah, it's so interesting kind of how it works out, where just one email could like turn into a whole partnership and then bringing you here on the STEM space. So I'm interested, Aman, why did you reach out to us? I mean, it was a very well-written email, but what were you trying to get from Vilify?
Okay. So to answer that question, I'll have to give you a little bit of background of where we come from. So
Yeah.
when Vivek, Abhi, and I we started Qweebi, we had very little information about the K-12 STEM space. Like we aren't educators, school principals, or administrators, right? So we really didn't know what it feels like to be in the shoes of a STEM teacher and navigate this STEM ecosystem. So we did what we could. We joined STEM teacher Facebook groups. We interviewed a lot of STEM teachers and we read extensively. Now, one of the things that we kept coming back to in our research was Vivify STEM. So you guys actually have like one of the most comprehensive resource for the state of K-12 STEM education in the world. That's what our belief is. And like your articles, 3 stages of STEM, or how to introduce engineering in the science classroom, like they're pure gold. They helped us understand so much about like what STEM education is all about, what teachers are really trying to do in the classroom, why are they running like team building projects to STEM projects to some long form projects. Like you laid the foundation for us. After that, whatever we read, it sort of fell in place, right? And then before that, it was all a maze in terms of what STEM really is. It was very chaotic, right? So you really like shaped our foundation of STEM education. And when we built our product, and we thought that STEM teachers could use it. You were the first people we wanted to get in touch and get your opinion of our solution. So I think that was our sort of story of why we reached out to you. Vivek, did I like? Would you like to add something to it?
No, I think that pretty much summed up everything. But maybe if I had to add something, I'd talk about why the feedback from Vilify STEM was actually so crucial, right? Why you guys? So I think by this time we actually felt we knew you because we've read everything you've done, right? So we felt like we already know Natasha and Claire. Number one. Number two was we didn't think of Vilify STEM as just like two people. Wasn't Natasha and Claire. It felt like if 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 we got feedback from Vivify STEM, it was not just the voice of Natasha and Claire. It felt like it was the collective voice of thousands of STEM teachers all over the US. Right? So that's what it felt like, and all in one shot. Like imagine if you could get an opinion from thousands of STEM teachers in one meeting, right? So that was that's how we looked at feedback from Vivify. And yeah, we just launched our first product, and we are pretty paranoid about whether this is going to work or not, right? And so we wanted validation. We wanted to see if we're on the right track. But even more than on the right track, we wanted to know if we were barking up the wrong tree. Then we want you to tell us right away. And I remember during the meeting, I remember very clearly that Amar and I were pressing you to be brutally honest, right? If you
Right.
saw any red flags, just tell us to our face. Don't worry about hurting our feelings, you know. So that's why it was so important. That's how we looked at the feedback. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And so let's talk about what you developed. What I was very intrigued by with this idea of you were trying to really hone in on the problem. What is this challenge that STEM teachers are facing? Because they want to do right by their students, they want to have high quality, high impact STEM. But as you said in the email, it's very chaotic to do that. We talk about this on the podcast. So much stuff. It takes so much time to do all this prototyping and iterations. So, what is Qweebi offering that's different that's helping us solve that?
So
And to
is it?
jump in there real quick, if I could, first I need to publicly apologize for initially dismissing you guys' email because often there's so many people that do say they solve problems that are in STEM, and there's a lot of issues that we can always do better with in STEM education. But once we got onto y'all's website and see what you guys are really doing, you guys are the only ones that are really addressing the real problem. So explain what that is, because we were so impressed by what you guys are tackling.
Okay. Aman, do you want me to take that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So the problem we're really trying to solve is that running hands-on STEM in class is really, really hard, right? And see, we're not educators, right? So how did we find out about this? We talked to over 400 STEM teachers all across the country, right? All over the US. And the idea was to really understand the biggest challenges they had in the classroom. And these are all like, long 1 hour Zoom meetings, right? And Aman and I kept hearing the same challenges over and over again, right? The three big reasons why STEM is so hard in classrooms. Number one, supplies are really expensive, okay? And I feel like we're preaching to the choir here, but the idea is that stuff like motors and batteries and solar panels quickly add up, and it can get pretty expensive even just for like one project in one classroom, right? Like a solar panel will cost you like $7, right? A motor will cost you $3-4, and quickly add it up, and we see that most STEM teachers, they're not just in one class. They have over 200-300 students across, let's say, 3rd grade to 8th grade, right? So supplies are expensive was the first big problem. Number two was limited class time, right? So 45 minutes just wasn't enough time for teachers to actually run these hands-on projects. When you're trying to do these projects in class, oftentimes things don't go the way you planned. And it's really hard to drive a classroom full of 20-30 students to complete the entire project in such a short duration. And the real so what is if you don't finish projects, then you can't really drive learning outcomes, right? So that was the second big problem, limited class time. The third one was something we ignored for a long time, but teachers kept hammering us with the same problem. It's really cumbersome to run, right? We never really understood because we're not classroom teachers, but over time we understood that every time a classroom comes in, there's like 15 minutes of setup, and then there is cleanup after, right? So you lose valuable class time. You're always worried about safety, where you might burn yourself with a hot glue gun or sharp knives or whatever. And I think the problem that kept coming out was that storage was an issue. And we were like, what is storage, right? And still remember the teacher's words, right? Teachers would be like, okay, you guys don't get what storage is. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're running a roller coaster project with 30 students. What are you supposed to do with half-ton roller coaster projects until next week? Like, where do you store them? And that's when it hit us. This is really, really impractical, right? So the three main challenges that make running STEM really hard are supplies are expensive, there's just not enough class time, and it's just really clunky and cumbersome to run in class. Yeah, that's the problem.
All right, so then let's get to the solution. Aman, what did you do to tackle these three big challenges?
All right. So the solution follows the problem. The problem is running hands-on STEM projects is really hard in class. So the solution is we make it super easy for teachers to run these hands-on STEM projects, right? And our solution has three main parts. First is we come with a library of ready-to-go STEM projects. So what it does for the teacher is teacher doesn't have to spend a lot of time prepping and figuring out how to run this STEM project in class. Like everything is really done for them. We have teacher slides, lesson plans, student handouts. So what's really expected is that you go through the material and you are all set up. So generally it takes like 20 to 30 minutes to be able to, let's say, prep and be ready to run a STEM project. So that's like one big problem that we solve for the teacher, which is saving her prep time. Now, the next thing is our solution also has an online makerspace. So what's an online makerspace? It's basically a place for students to build their STEM projects in. And since it's online, it doesn't need any supplies. Now, like what it does in a classroom is now that teachers, again, like just like Vivek said, teachers don't have to worry about physical supplies. Teachers don't have to worry about time consuming setup cleanup. Teachers don't have to worry about storage. So by having an online makerspace, the clunky and the cumbersome nature of running STEM in class, we try to address that, right? And finally, we also have a teacher dashboard that lets teachers easily track learning outcomes. So one of the things that teachers keep telling us is that assessment is hard. It's very hard for them to share what is happening in their class with parents and administrators. So with Qweebi, now since learning outcomes are being tracked on teacher dashboard, it is super easy for teacher to show what's happening in their class to parents and administrators, right? So broadly, that's our solution. We make it super easy for teachers to run STEM projects. How we do that is by providing a library of ready to run STEM projects so that they save on prep time. We provide an online makerspace so they don't have to worry about physical supplies. We provide a teacher dashboard so they can track and share learning outcomes. That's the big picture solution. Vivek, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that's the solution.
Yeah,
That's the platform.
and whenever you say makerspace, to help students or the listeners visualize this, we're talking about like Coke cans and cardboard boxes and like the stuff that you would build and use to do a rover challenge, a roller coaster challenge. That is in this virtual makerspace. And Claire, you did this with your students. So can you just help the audience kind of visualize what this makerspace and experience is like?
Yeah, so you said it like so easily, like, oh, we just solved these problems. But for the listener and like for me, where I was as a STEM teacher, I'm hearing these solutions and these problems, and I'm like, you did it. Like, I feel so seen and so heard right now. I mean, I staple projects to the ceiling because I'm out of space
You do
and there's
not.
just no storage room. So what I'm telling you, I did one of your challenges with my students, and it was amazing because I didn't have to clean up anything. We got through an entire lesson because we didn't have to set anything up. They learned things. And I would say problem number 4 is that oftentimes when I'm doing a challenge and I'm like, no, you're going to learn things from this. Like, I promise, just do it. Just do the project and you're going to learn things and you're going to love it. But I didn't have to like force that on them. They were like, this is amazing. So that fun factor is like built in. These kids love it. Normally when they're building things with Coke cans, they're like screaming in pain in my classroom, but they're doing things in a virtual makerspace instead of the real world, but it's still the hands-on learning. Like, they're doing exactly the same thing. The physics still works the same as the real world. And they're having so much fun learning in this virtual environment. And so was I as the teacher. So thank you for solving those issues.
And I think what was so exciting to me is the data that you can collect, because when you do a roller coaster challenge, it's so difficult in the physical world to like build multiple iterations to get the students to stop and think and collect data. But you've built that into this makerspace where you're taking measurements and you're guiding them to think about these science concepts. So you're able to align to those learning objectives of a STEM classroom. And so can you talk to me a little bit more about kind of what are the students getting out of this? What are some of the learning outcomes?
Vivek, should I take this one?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So what are students learning on Qweebi? So whenever students engage on a project on Qweebi, they learn 3 big things. And I think you've sort of pointed it out, but they learn 3 big things. One is that they learn how the science and math that they run in regular classroom is connected to the real world. So let me tell you what I mean by that. For example, students might learn about, let's say, potential energy, kinetic energy, gravity in a science classroom, but they learn about it in a very theoretical way, right? Now, in a Qweebi classroom, they actually get to see how this science that they have learned of potential energy, kinetic energy, gravity can get them to do some wonderful things in the world, like design a roller coaster ride, right? So idea is that students start seeing the science and math they're learning in the classroom, how it is applied to the real world. And when you discover it, it's in itself a lot of fun. So that's one thing that students get out of Qweebi. The other thing that students get out of Qweebi is they get exposed to a wide variety of STEM careers. So they learn about electrical engineer, another day they would be robotics engineer, another day they would be mechanical engineers, right? So they just get exposed to so many careers that are out there, and they can figure out if they're interested in something particularly, right? And lastly, the core part of Qweebi is we help students learn how to solve open-ended problems using the engineering design process. So every time a student is doing a project on Qweebi, they're cycling through the EDP process. Generally, if you were to do EDP process in classroom with a physical hands-on STEM project, you might end up doing only one cycle, right? But on Qweebi, since it's an online makerspace and building doesn't take so much time, you are able to do 8 to 10 to 12 iterations in one single class. And that's where you're sharpening up your critical thinking skills, your creativity, because you're seeing your solution is not working and what to do next, right? So broadly, they're developing those essential 21st century skills that everyone keeps talking about. So those are the three big things that students learn on Qweebi. Number one is they learn to see how math and science is connected to the real world. They get exposed to wide variety of STEM careers. And finally, they learn how to solve open-ended problems using the engineering design process.
Can you tell me a little bit more of the kinds of problems? So I remember there was a Mars rover. That was the first thing you introduced us to. So what are some other projects under development or maybe coming soon in this Qweebi world?
Okay. When we talk about kinds of problems, one thing that we love that STEM teachers are doing is bridging the gap between the classroom and the real world, right? And this is coming from lived experience from both of us. In class, you're generally, when you're a student, you generally solve problems that have straight answers, right? You have very well-defined problems. They're either fill in the blanks or multiple choice questions or essays, right? But as soon as you walk out into the real world, right, everything changes. These are not the kind of problems you're used to solving, right? Everything in your personal, professional life, there are no clean problems and there are no straight answers. Everything is like a ball of yarn. It's an open-ended problem that could have many, many solutions, right? So what we really like about STEM teachers is that they're training students to solve these open-ended problems, right? So that's what we do at Qweebi. We offer a curriculum of a wide variety of projects across robotics, across engineering, across electronics. All of them are open-ended problems. All of them give you a chance to step into the shoes of a real-world career. Natasha, would you like me to talk about a few of these projects?
I would love to hear. Yeah.
Okay, so for engineering, we have basically, we finalized the list of projects that are coming out for the 2025 catalog. And for engineering, we have two really cool projects. One you're familiar with, the roller coaster project, where students become mechanical engineers and they get to design and build their own roller coaster. So that's the first project. The second one is, we're really excited, is a Rube Goldberg challenge, right? So this is, we've tried to align it with the official 2025 Rube Goldberg challenge. This year's challenge is feed a pet, right? So the idea is, again, students are in the shoes of mechanical engineers and they're going to learn about simple machines. And the idea is to design a wacky contraption using all of your simple machines to be able to feed your pet, right? So that's the second project in engineering. In terms of electronics, we have two projects that we've selected that are centered around the UN's sustainability goals, right, around renewable energy. The first one is a project around windmills where students have to construct different kinds of windmills to generate different levels of power, right? I'm not going to reveal the theme just yet because it's pretty interesting. And the second project is about solar energy on how a student may design a carnival that's powered by solar power. Okay, so that's all I'll say. That's the second part of electronics. I think one thing we're really excited about is the robotics curriculum, right? Two projects here. One is the Mars rover project. This is also something that you might have got a glimpse at, you guys, where students are put in the shoes of real-life NASA engineers, where they design and build a Mars rover from scratch, right? This is the part where they use cardboard and Coke cans and straws and motors to be able to build a real Mars rover that can handle harsh Martian terrain, right? And finally, we're introducing our first line of robotics. We're calling them Qbots. And the idea is that these are wheeled or drone robots that can be controlled through a block-based coding environment, right? The idea is that, with the advent of AI and robotics, we want to be able to get students familiar with real-world problems where robots are actually automating a lot of the stuff we're doing, right?
Right.
That's our curriculum across robotics, engineering, and electronics.
Claire, what's your reaction?
I am so excited about all of these. So I ran the roller coaster project with my students, and something that I didn't realize until just now, that I don't really understand how it works, how you did it, but was such a success story. We talk about 21st century skills and how you're developing those. Perseverance is one of the biggest things that I try to help my students grow in. And there's always at least one team that just doesn't get it with a challenge. Like they just want to give up. They're done. Something's not working. I don't know what it is. But with Qweebi, it was like there was nothing that would get in the way of them finishing the challenge. So much so that I'm not allowed to give homework. My school has a pretty hard stance on learning should be done in the classroom. Homework could be busy work, get it done at school. As a specials teacher, I'm definitely not allowed to give homework. Well, I was secretly handing out sticky notes because the students begged me to be able to work on it at home. Like that never happens. Even if a child wants to bring their project home, I can't let them. One, their parents are going to throw it away because it's just a bunch of trash that they tape together. But this they were able to do on their own time to improve their scores or improve their project so that they could even do it again in the classroom. I mean, that's amazing. Y'all have really done something there. So I can only imagine with the other projects, Rube Goldberg, I've done that in person, and that is rough. The setting up and everything and getting everything to work, so hard. Robotics takes up so much time and is so expensive. So that's an incredible endeavor to be able to do that in a virtual makerspace. So I'm pumped to try all of these.
Awesome.
And this is my favorite part, is how you're elevating this understanding of engineering, and you're doing it in a way that's more authentic and closer to the real work of engineers. So when you are in a STEM classroom and you're building roller coasters out of cardboard and cereal boxes, and then you go enter your first year as an engineering student, professors are like, we don't do that in engineering. You're on a computer and you're creating a model and you're looking at stress analysis and you're taking all this data. Well, that's what you're trying to introduce with Qweebi in a way that's appropriate for younger students. So you're still allowing them to play around with the materials, but in this virtual world, you're simulating it, you're modeling it. These are things that are very hard to get across at that age. And what I'm curious to see is how you could take that simulated world and then do a bunch of iterations and then build it in the physical world, right? Because everything you have in your makerspace is stuff you can use in your classroom. So that connection is so exciting to me, because it's really not done anywhere else that we've seen in STEM curriculum. So we're just so happy to be part of this journey with you, and just like excited to be part of it.